Hey, we're live. Awesome. Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome to my humble live show tonight. Bonsoir tout le monde. Tonight I'm super honored. I have a good friend, someone I met at NAM, Scott Gailor with me.
Good to
Awesome,
have.
awesome teacher, awesome guitar player. He does demos for a bus also. Am I correct? Yep.
Oh, hold on.
You
I
got
did.
something?
Yeah, I had to turn that off real quick.
Okay, it's all right.
I
All
didn't know
right.
where that
So,
came from.
welcome aboard. Thanks. It's show number 6 tonight. I'm
Very
super,
nice.
I'm super surprised, and I'm getting so much positive feedback from all the person I'm contacting. I have a super cool guests that are coming for the next week. I'm booked until the mid-May, so this
That's
is
awesome.
awesome. Oh, we have already a viewer with us right now, Sean.
Hey, Sean.
Welcome. Okay, so Scott, thank you very much to be here tonight, and let's jump right away.
Sure.
Why the guitar? How did it start?
For me,
Yep.
I played piano first, then I played violin and I played trumpet. And this is all
Wow.
before the age of 10. My mom really wanted all of us to play an instrument,
Okay.
and I wanted a guitar, and she wouldn't get me a guitar because I played other instruments. It was simple as that. I played so many other instruments, and I was actually a fairly good violinist, and was like, no, let's stay with this. So I scraped together enough money. I've always been really good with small engine stuff, and so somebody found a mini bike, gave it to me because it didn't work. I took it apart, fixed it, and I
Mm-hmm.
traded it with a neighbor kid for a crappy guitar and a crappy amp. But I was excited, so I had two strings and this beat up wannabe Strat thing, and threw it together. And my mom saw that I was serious. And about 4 months later, I got a slightly better guitar and lessons, and then it just kind of took off from there. But at age 11, I heard Eruption, and that was it. And it was game on.
Right. Wow.
No.
Awesome. So, hey boy, we're close. We're close to the same age. If I think we grew up listening to the same guitar players and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you remember what was your first guitar? First amp, first guitar, first.
My first guitar that was decent, I had a Stage 212, which Frank Zappa used to play. And
Okay.
one of my first guitar teachers was a guy named Ricky Bruno, who was big into Frank Zappa.
Mm-hmm.
So I got that because of him. And my first sort of cool guitar was an Ibanez Roadster, just a cheap Ibanez, but it got me going. And then I lucked into two 1969 Strats that I had forever when you could buy them for a couple $100, but I ruined them. I put a Floyd on and stripped all the paint off.
Yeah.
Another one I traded for some rack mount gear. Just things you don't think about when you're a kid.
No.
And then I got into Charvels and Ibanez's like everybody else. And then, I started having all my guitars customized and built and tweaked and things just because I was on the road so much and I was destroying guitars, not on purpose. Like I wasn't Pete Townsend stuff. I'm brutal. I move a lot. I'm a fairly not strong guy, but I'm not a big guy. I'm not a small guy, but I kill guitars, unfortunately. So,
So,
just go ahead.
no, you just said you were on the road. So you went early in your let's say in your life as a touring musician.
Mm-hmm. At 17, 16 and a half, 17, I had to make a choice. I graduated early and was going to go play junior hockey because hockey was what I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was going to get me to college. And I got an opportunity to go play music. And I took it. I moved to New York, joined a band called Union Jack. And we played up and down the East Coast. If it had electricity, we played it. And we had good people behind us. And we were kids, man. I mean, like the oldest guy in the band was 19, and we did a lot of amazing stuff. It's just, we were kids and we didn't know what we were doing. Then I went into another band that had a small record deal that led me into auditions, which got me into a band in Florida. And then, I spent basically, 18, 19 years just slugging it up and down the East Coast and all throughout the U.S. and doing original music. So it wasn't all original music. It wasn't like, we're doing cover gigs. You had that grind of, 5 or 6 nights a week when you could do it. Now, you can't do that now, but we could travel from here to Philly, let's say West Palm Beach to Philly and play 20 gigs, make enough money to go there and back, put a little bit of money in our pocket, and do that with original music. And
Wow.
I was fortunate enough never have to be in a cover band.
Wow.
Nothing. And before I get hate mail, I have nothing against cover bands. I just like playing my own stuff.
So we have John.
Hey, John.
Hello, John. Sean.
Hey, John.
You had a decent guitar, Scott, when you were starting, and Francis. Hi, welcome aboard. Thanks,
Hello.
guys. Thanks, guys, to be viewers of our humble show. So, if we go back to your early days, who were you said Eruption. Eruption brought you to the guitar, but
right.
That's Van Halen. Any other guitar players you were into back then?
Well, you got to, if you go into from stage stuff or from playing stuff. So I saw Joe Perry within that same stretch of hearing Eruption. So I saw the original Aerosmith, original lineup, Joe Perry, saw him second row center at a place called SPAC in upstate New York, and was blown away. And Joe was the coolest dude on the planet. So that made me want to do this. But early on, of course, Michael Schenker, Gary Moore, early Yngwie. I mean, Yngwie, don't forget, was what, 81, 82, if you got the imports with Steeler. And so there was this whole thing. And I was lucky in this small pocket. Saratoga, where I grew up, is very small. It's actually, close. You know exactly what it is.
I know where it is. Let's say New York City is maybe my favorite city. I don't know why. I fell in love with New York City.
Mine as well.
I go there since I discovered New York, I go there once a year from Montreal. It's only 6 hours from Montreal. And
right.
Saratoga is sometime one of, when we need to stop for fuel or eat or whatever, we stop by Saratoga. So I know the place. It's a nice place. That
was always a joke because I played a lot of hockey in Montreal, in Quebec, all different places, and we were the last stop before Montreal on 95.
Yeah.
So Joe Perry with that, but this little pocket where I grew up, there was a bunch of us playing guitar on this one block, and Peter Prince, who I'm still friends with, and Peter still plays professionally, we would get together in our garages. So he had a garage, I had an attic thing, and we would do, he'd know a riff or I'd know a riff, and we'd share ideals, and it was this amazing time because you didn't have, you obviously didn't have the internet. You didn't really have tablature in the sense that you do now, and you had to, it was the older guys, there's one of my good friends, Joe DeSantis' older brother, Rob DeSantis. He was into Billy Sheehan and Talas and Rush, and he turned me on to all these amazing things. That was you know what I mean? And everybody was sharing ideals, and it wasn't competitive. It wasn't like, ooh, I want to be better than this guy. It was like, hey, he knows that. Maybe if I do this. And so we just played and played and played and played and played. And, you grew up in Montreal, so playing.
No, I didn't grow up in Montreal, but grew up in the Eastern Township, very small town. So I relate a lot to what you're saying. We had not access to when we wanted music. It was kind of difficult. I was a subscriber of Guitar for the Practicing Musician.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that magazine. Each month I was like, oh, when is my new copy coming in the mail? I was like, what is going to be on the cover? Who's going to be on the cover? And what songs are going to be transcribed? And
that was this is the other part that gets lost. You can go look up anybody right now that we talk about. Yeah. And hopefully people will. And you can hear, see, listen. I walked everywhere where I grew up. I know. A place called Knickerbocker News. I'd walk down there every month, and I would get Guitar World or Guitar for the Practicing Musician. And if I was lucky, they would have Guitar Player. And I could buy one. I couldn't buy all three, but I'd get one, and then maybe Peter get the other one, and we'd share and swap. And that's how you learned all this great stuff. And you would be curious, who's going to be on the cover? What am I going to learn?
Yeah, I still remember, about this. And sometimes, I don't know for you, but me in my small town where I was living, sometimes my magazine will arrive and it will be all torn up or destroyed by the post. And I would have to write back to Guitar for the Practicing Musician to send me a proper copy,
Right.
And back then my English was kind of bad and everything, but I would write a letter, put it in the mail and wait another month until I get a proper copy, all sealed in a bag and everything. So, but it's all cool. When you're talking about going to a small store getting your magazine, I remember my mom, because I have a similar let's say journey to yours. I
Right.
started playing piano, and and I wanted to play the drums.
Okay.
This was my dream, and my cousin, who was about the same age as I am, was very. We were very close, and he got a drum before me, and I was like pissed off. I was like, I wanted to learn the drums, and he got it before I did. So I ended up playing the guitar just to be able to play music with him, so we could
Right.
jam
Right.
together. And I remember my mom, who didn't, she was a bit kind of disappointed that I stopped playing piano to play the guitar, and she said she brought me my first copy of Guitar for the Practicing Musician. So I was like, oh, you may not like the fact that I'm playing guitar, but she found that copy in a small cigar shop or whatever,
Right. Right.
and she brought it home and she said, hey, look what I found. Maybe this can help you learn some songs or whatever.
Dude, I remember my memory of Guitar for the Practicing Musician was so huge because I walked into Knickerbocker like I've done 100 times. And
John, we're all with you since
yes,
19.
and they had Judas Priest on the cover. And I remember it was Glenn Tipton and KK Downing and the red leather pants and the flying V and the whole 9 yards. And it had tablature. I'd never seen tablature before. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, same for me.
And I took it to my teacher and I said, what is this? He goes, oh man, that's the poor man's version of reading music. You already know how to read, you know how to read music. And I was like, yeah, I do, but none of this stuff nobody has music for this. And he's like, use your ear. And he was very big. And I appreciate that now because it's a huge tool. But it was interesting. Like that was so new. Now I can pull up on my phone. Actually, my phone's not in there.
Yeah.
But I can pull anything up on my phone. And yeah, exactly. And I teach. So if I got a 45-minute lesson, yeah, sure, I can figure out any song by ear. But this kid's paying for the lesson. So I'll quickly grab a tab, get a quick look at what it is if I don't know the song already, and kind of go through there. So it's an interesting time too, because I think there was a mystery to guitar playing and how guys did things, and you couldn't just look up whatever it is and see how it was done.
I'm spoiled with Ultimate Guitar.
Yeah, I have it as well. It's the best teaching tool I have.
It's not perfect.
No.
The tabs back in the 80s were not perfect also. But
no, terrible.
It helps you, start learning the tune. You got pointers. You maybe sometime and I'm old school. I'd rather go to see a tab than go on YouTube and watch someone playing it.
Yeah. No, I mean that's an interesting thing too for me because my early teachers wouldn't teach me songs. That wasn't part of the equation. If you wanted to learn a song, it was a treat. It was an accomplishment because you did so well in your lesson stuff. So, a great story, Michael Schenker song, Armed and Ready. I wanted to learn it. I wanted to learn the solo. And it was and you have to understand, Ricky Bruno was this really weird guy in my town. Mm-hmm. And my previous teacher that I had, I just didn't click with him. We just didn't get, it's not that we didn't get along. I was a kid. It wasn't like he had to get along with me, but I wasn't learning at a pace I felt I should have been. And so when I found Ricky, I really bonded with him and I was learning quickly. And I was like, hey man, I want to learn this song. And he scribbled out a bunch of stuff and handed it back to me. And I was like, well, what the hell is this? Mm-hmm. Because that's how you're going to figure out the song. I was like, this is a scale. He goes, yeah. And I was like, I need you to teach me the song. And he's like, well, if I want to smell what Michael had for breakfast, I'm not going to stick my head up his ass. Now, I'm 12. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Like, I go back to my mother, and my mother does exactly what you just did and laughed and said, oh, no, he wants you to figure it out. And I was all defiant. I was a kid that if you said, I wasn't good enough or I couldn't do it, that not only would I learn how to do it, but I'd learn how to do it better than you thought I could. So I came back and I learned the song. I was all excited. He goes, great, you just learned the harmonic minor scale. And I was like, wait, what? He goes, you just learned the harmonic minor scale.
Okay, cool.
I was like, how is that possible? What are you talking about? And so he had a unique learning style, and he would teach me stuff song-wise, but there was that whole part about it. And so now that you have this access to anything quickly, I think it helps but hurts. But at the same time, you know what? You have to keep up. The entire world has changed. So we do everything on the internet now. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
but back then we had to work, you know. And,
absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, we had to work, and we had to, I don't know if you did that, but I had a limited access to, let's say, records or cassettes or.
Yep.
And I remember we had there was a huge FM station in Montreal, Chaume FM. They're still on air right now, and they had a show on Saturday night. It was called the Metal File. So if you wanted your metal dose, you had to listen to this, and you know, with your tape cassette ready to record. Go. Yeah, I remember the first time I heard Yngwie was on that live radio show, and you know, it changed my perspective of guitar. I wasn't playing guitar yet, you know, but when I heard him, I was like, wow, this is awesome.
The Yngwie story is weird or funny for me because I could do all the Van Halen stuff at that point. I was like 12, 13.
Wow.
I could shuffle, I could play Eruption. You know what I mean? I had all the cool stuff. And that's not to knock any of it. Eddie is still one of my hugest heroes. But I kind of had that part, and I was venturing into other stuff. Somebody turned me on to Al Di Meola and some other things. But then I heard Yngwie on the radio, same as you, and I was like, whoa, wait, what is this? Like, where does that go?
Yeah.
And I ran out to the local record store, and they had no idea what I was talking about. And another kid at school knew, and he got me like a cassette of like 3 songs, and it was Alcatraz, and there was some Steeler stuff mixed in, and that was it. It took me right back to the woodshed, and then it evolved, and you then I learned about Alan Holdsworth and all these other guys, but wow, the Yngwie moment was just as big as the Eddie moment. Like, there's certain players that you hear and you're like, okay, I need to go back and practice now.
Yeah, this is awesome because I was into rock music way before starting playing, you know. So this is interesting to get your feedback. We'll just stop. We have Francis here. He says he loved Montreal, lived there in the 80s. Awesome, Francis. By the way, my wife's last name is O'Connor, so this is cool.
Very nice.
Yeah, thanks, John. My mom, well, she was she was a great mom. She didn't like heavy metal and rock, but she was she's dead right now, you know, and rest in peace, Mom. But she was it's funny, she hated the fact that I was playing guitar and rock music, and later in her life, at one point, she was like, it took her many, many years before accepting. And we have Francis again. I tried to play by ear, but I discover I have Sungat here. Oh, I don't know this one, but I discovered another site recently. What, Songster? Something like that? Does it?
Songster's another one, yeah.
Yeah, you see the tabs online, and you can mute the instruments, and it's kind of cool. So let's go back to your youth, Scott. What do you remember? What first song you learned, or do you have that memory?
I mean, it's weird because I'm from a big household, a lot of kids, and so there was a lot of music in the house. Yeah. And I was learning stuff like the Doors, and I think probably the first song I learned all the way through was probably some Beach Boys thing, something simple. Okay. But like rock songs that I remember, like learned Michael Schenker, Armed and Ready all the way through. Like there was a bunch of the early, like I Get Hacked Through You really got me early on, and you know, the older kids were the kids that were playing music, so I hung out with them. Mm-hmm. And it was a weird thing because I played sports, and I was knee deep in sports. I played sports as much as I played music, but
Yep.
you've got your athletic friends who don't like your sports, your music friends, and your music friends don't like your sports friends. And so it puts you in a weird spot. And like when we would go, we'd go into drive into Montreal to play. So we'd be in the bus. I'd take the guitar on the bus. Or
Oh, really?
like, yeah. I was a goalie, so I was meant to be weird anyway. So they just chalked it up as, all the goalie's being
cool.
weird again. You know what I mean? And I was also a starter, so they really couldn't mess with me too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I started 90% of the time. So it was just one of those things that kind of evolved. And the first thing, though, that really, like, I put the time in to learn, like, soup to nuts was Eruption. Like, that was one of the things where I want to say it probably took me 2 months to get that proper. And, again, pre-tab time. So, like, my buddy knows a lick. I know a lick. I got a vinyl record player I'm dropping a needle on, and you're trying. The cool thing is I knew this. Like, I knew that you had to tap.
Okay.
I was lucky because I read it. I don't remember where I read it. I think it was Guitar Player. And I was like, okay, so I got this, and I already play piano, so this sort of makes sense. And it's like an arpeggio, okay. Yeah. But, it was off to the races. But at like 16, I stopped learning songs on purpose because I thought if I'm going to play original music, I don't want anything creeping in. Like, if I bothered to learn a bunch of songs, then when I'm writing, something might squeak out that even subconsciously, same thing. I'm in the middle of writing a record now. I'm not listening to a lot of stuff right now.
Okay.
Because I don't want it.
You're working on your own music right now.
Yeah. And I don't want anything to kind of creep in.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I understand.
Sure.
I really understand. I'm not a huge composer. I don't write much music, but I remember in the years where I spent the most time recording my own stuff, I would spend more time listening to my own music, or listening to your mix, listening to your, trying to figure out how to fit all this in the field, the sonic field, and rather than to listening to others music. I don't know if I'm clear when I'm
no. I completely understand it. I mean, the thing for me, like, I'll still listen to music, don't get me wrong, but I will avoid anything guitar related, like the plague, so that it doesn't creep in.
I don't get you wrong. I truly feel what you're saying. You're saying, and that's one thing in my guitar, let's say, journey. When I bought my mom bought me a synthesizer.
Very nice.
Cool. In the late 80s with a sequencer, very, very expensive rig, back then,
right.
It was super expensive. I don't know if you remember, my sequencer was a Kawai sequencer, very expensive, with those art diskette. Do you remember those?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I remember when she bought me this, I could have stopped living, doing anything else than being in front of that sequencer and programming stuff and trying out stuff with my guitar, and trying to figure out new songs or new composition, personal composition. And then I bought a 4-track tape cassette. And that was it. I could have stayed in my room back then, and I stopped practicing. Instead, I was just putting sounds together or painting with sounds. Some would paint with colors, but in my case, it was painting with sound. I don't know if this happened to you at one point, but in my case, this is where I stopped being a guitar player, and I was more of a kind of a composer.
At 14, I got a Fostex X15.
X50. Oh, let me check on. Yeah. Go ahead. Keep on.
And that was I would put down these ideals and try to do different things. And the thing is I had this.
Oh,
I could hear all these ideals in my head, and I would try to get them on tape the best that I could. Of course, you don't have tutorials. I don't have proper mics. There's no amp sims or anything. So you're just trying your best with whatever you have to make these crude little demos just so I could put together the pieces. But then I would layer, you know, these guitar parts, and I learned how to bounce. And, you know, I did demos like that for years. Matter of fact, I ended up getting a Fostex X250, which ended up being the 8-track version. Yeah, that's it.
Well, that was not the one I owned, but I had a Fostex very similar to this one. Yeah.
Yeah, that I had that forever. Currently, I have 2 Tascam units sitting in here somewhere. One's a 3/4 speed, one's a normal speed, because I'm going through old tape boxes now and digging up stuff, because I did you know, all the Kid Havoc stuff when I was in Kid Havoc was everything was done on those 8 tracks.
Your model could not. My model, I could modify the speed on it. So yours.
No,
mine.
That one you could not.
No, okay. Mine I could. Okay.
Yeah, awesome. I couldn't slow anything down yet, but I had I got a Marantz, this thing called a Marantz, which I could slow down.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I was torn between 2 spots, because I had a chance. I got accepted to Berkeley. I got accepted to GIT.
Oh, wow.
And I could have went to school at either place and become an educator. Not that I'm not an educator now, but a more official educator. Mm-hmm. But I had a chance to go play on the road. And I thought, well, education will always be there. I can always go do that. That's not going to change. And my personal quest to learn didn't stop. I just bought books. There's the bookcase. Actually, I think there it is. The other side.
It's all right.
Right there.
Yeah.
There's 300 books in there.
Wow.
Of all music books that I've actually picked up and studied out of. Now, granted, I haven't learned them all back to front, but what happens is I'll be somewhere, I'll find a book, there'll be a piece of key information that I love, and I'll grab it and I'll learn out of it. And I'll put a note on it or a sticky note. But there's other books in there that I've devoured front to back. You know, like Chordal Harmony from, oh my God, Tom. God, he's a local dude. I can't remember his last name now. Tommy Floyd. I wore that book out. And, you know, he put out a new version. I even got to take a few lessons with him during that process. There's like Steve Lynch, the guitar player from Autograph, put out a book.
Really? On what subject?
On tapping. But he did it like, the book came out in like 80. I mean, it's an old book. Like, he's on the cover in like bell-bottom leather pants with a Les Paul. Like, it's old. And I'm lucky enough to become friendly with him. So every time I see him, I bust his balls on that. But I learned a lot of stuff out of that book. And there's certain things that you go through and this is going to sound bad because I teach at a music school, so I don't want it to sound that way, but you don't have to have a music school background to be good or learn. I mean, now you have the tools. The only thing I think a teacher does now, if somebody's fingering something incorrectly or there's an incorrect way they're holding the pick or something, the guy on YouTube can't reach through the screen and be like, hey, that's incorrect. Yeah. You know, same thing with the REH videos, though, too. You know, the old videos we get back in the day, Paul Gilbert couldn't tell me I didn't have my wrist right. But my teacher that I would go to locally could be like, yeah, dude, that's cool, but you're going to hurt yourself. Change this or change that. So I always encourage people to at least get some couple of lessons with somebody they respect one-on-one just to make sure everything's fine-tuned.
Very, very interesting thing you're saying, because back in my early days, I remember I took a few lessons, and once it was for about 4 months, and you know, the guy was teaching me basic, very Melby kind of coming from Melby books, and you're just starting. You have a little amplifier with my first pedal was a Boss HM2. I don't know the heavy metal one. You know, you want to rock, and the guy is teaching you like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star or something like this. You're like, come on, show me Iron Maiden, show me something, you know, that rocks. And I had a friend that was a bit older than me. I lost track of him. But he was an awesome player, you know, but very, very good player. But the guy was keeping everything to him, you know. He would not.
I tell everybody everything.
Yeah. So he would not teach us, you know. We would have to look at his fingers going, and then when he would be out of the room, we will try to copy what he would just played. But the guy was keeping everything to him. So and then at one point, life goes on, so you stop. You stop. On my side, I stopped looking for that ultimate goal of keeping. I was just playing for fun. So that's one of my questions. Did you ever stop at one point, or you always kept?
No, I'm always a student. I've always been a student. I
Okay,
mean,
so you never quit guitar. You always since you
no,
started.
never.
This is awesome. Okay,
I mean,
okay,
I had stretches where I couldn't play. Like I had wrist surgery.
okay,
I had a grade 2 concussion
okay.
from playing hockey in
Yeah,
'96 or '97.
understood. Yep.
I had stretches where things were different, but I've
Different.
never stopped playing.
Okay.
Never got rid of my gear. I mean, I got rid of touring rigs. I mean, I've had some big ass crazy rigs that weren't necessary that I got rid of. But no, never. I mean,
And what right now keeps you, do you have anything that keeps you challenged right now? When you wake up in the morning and you say, oh, I'm going to pick up my guitar and work on, do you have any daily challenges or something or you just,
you know what it is? It's writing. I'm always, since I committed, I put Kid Havoc to bed in 2009. We played our last show. We did a couple shows with Cinderella. And
wow, Cinderella.
Okay, yeah, we did. I mean, we went out with Cinderella, King's X, Extreme. Like we did the whole stretch. I mean, we did all the cool stuff, but it wasn't fun anymore. And the guys are my brothers, but we can't play together anymore.
Yeah.
We just can't. It's just not there. And I should have put it to bed earlier, but we had a record get re-released, and then we did a second record because the first record did good, and we were getting all these cool shows, and it was like, okay. But it's kind of like getting together with an ex-wife. It's cool for a couple of minutes, and then all the bullshit comes back, right? It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And so as soon as I said, okay, that's it, I'm done, I focused on the instrumental thing, and the first instrumental record did really well. And, I got an editor's gold mine editor's choice thing, and I had a bunch of cool stuff happen with it, and I was really proud of it. And I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do now. And all sorts of opportunities came out with that. I mean, I've been with Boss now for 7 years, Chase Bliss for 6.
The Floyd block.
I'm with Stone Tone. I'm with Floyd Rose. The Swiss Pick guys, GHS. Wow. Like, I've got some good, and everybody's been super supportive. And this year was supposed to be the tour year. The trio was supposed to go out, and we've been rehearsing, and then all this happened. So. That was a little frustrating because
of the pandemic.
Well, yeah, and we had things lined up, but what keeps me going is trying to write a better instrumental song. That's a song, keyword song. I can noodle all day long. You want me to rip? That's not hard. And I'm not the best shredder in the world. I'm not the worst shredder in the world. I can play as fast as anybody on the planet. Who gives a shit? Nobody cares. Like
you're absolutely right.
You know what I mean? Like, and I've sat in a room and played with guys like Tom Quayle and Andy James, and also sat in a room. I played with Chris Poland all week at NAMM. Every day I had to trade solos with Chris Poland all day.
You had George Lynch that was coming a bit later.
Of course, you've got to be on your toes. But that's athletic. That's a gold medal type thing. I'm trying to make songs that are going to last within an instrumental realm past that point. And that was the biggest compliment I got on my last 2 CDs. Were like, hey, these are actual songs. I was like, yes. So that's really the thing. That's the goal of it.
Sorry to interrupt you. We have John here that says the right touch with Kiss.
Yes. I still have it.
You know what? I was having a discussion. Who was my last? Oh, I think it was Steve Stein. You know Steve Stein?
Oh, I know Steve. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he even mentioned you during my interview.
Oh, nice.
And we were discussing about cassette where I remember with my 4-track, and I still have, I think I have like 90 minutes of bunch of crap, from back in those days. But I remember when I was recording on my 4-track, you could not cut and do like you do with Reaper or Pro Tool or whatever. I remember I had done a jam with a friend, and we're like jamming for like 10 minutes, but it's a one-take shot,
Yep.
I know I'm not you. I don't play as good as you, but I remember that jam, recording it in one take. You know, you don't do any mistakes. You just give it all you got, and you record it. And
That is a thing that is missed, I think. So if you go back to Technicolor Monochrome, my first instrumental record, there's a song called No Smoking Section. That's one take. That's a legitimate, true one take. It's on video. It wasn't supposed to happen that way. A friend passed away. It was a shitty day. I wanted to record, and I also did everything backwards than what I normally do. So I took in my 74 Les Paul, which I don't play. It's just a guitar that I own that I love.
We'll get back to guitars later.
Yeah, but I took the 74 with me. I brought in a fuzz pedal and a wah-wah, and I just wanted to screw around on this track. And then I was going to do all the stuff that was prepared. And Daniel, who's I basically call him my son, but he's my engineer, my producer. And
okay, cool.
We got done with it, and it's all on video. The entire thing's on video. And it's on YouTube somewhere, and I'm sure it's floating in other places. And I got done, and he's like, yeah, that's it. Perfect. And I was like, no, we're not keeping any of that. And he goes, no, you've got to. It's right. And so I sat on it for a couple of days. I sent it to some friends, and they're like, no, that's it. And so I think there's something that we do as players or as songwriters where we just start beating things to death or trying to make perfect. And, music isn't perfect. The world isn't perfect. Writing's not perfect. These things have to flow and evolve. And those little things of what makes stuff breathe.
But it's interesting what you're saying. And this wasn't part of my interview, but I really like what you just said by the fact of, are we overthinking or over processing everything right now? Like
100%.
Listen to those old Led Zeppelin recordings, or I'm taking Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, or whatever.
Yep.
They were not perfect. They were like one shot. They recorded what they had. They put all their soul and their energy in the recording. I'm just speaking out loud right now. Everything it needs to be kind of quantized, and
I can't flip my computer around the way my setup is, but all my favorite records that I played are on that wall. I have different things that I've played on.
Yeah,
and I can look at 3 of them where I can tell you all of those were one take things. And when I sit it, okay, it's weird. Okay, so if I'm playing for my own stuff, it's harder for me to do the one take thing. But if I'm playing for somebody else, it's much easier for me to catch a vibe, play, and go. Like Bobby Gustafson, the guitar player from Overkill, did a solo band called Satan's Taint. I can't make that name up. Mm-hmm. And he asked me to play a solo on it.
Yeah.
And they sent me the stuff, and I took 3 takes, and I sent him all 3 takes and said, pick one. And he picked the first one, and that was it. And so that's what went on the record. Jack Harrison, when I played on his record, the 2 songs he got were first takes, and he kept them. I think there's things when they work, they work. What was devastating for me when I was a kid, 2 things I found out. So the first time the band Remington I was in went to go record at a place called Audio West in Connecticut. When you walk in, it's this huge, beautiful $1 million studio. Whitney Houston recorded there, Dream Theater, Fate's Warning. The drum room's bigger than any house I've ever lived in. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
And, I'm a punk kid, but I'm particular about tone. I've always had my guitar tone. And so I'm arguing with this guy who's an engineer, producer, and he's trying to change my shit. I'm like, no. But we were talking, and he's like, man, you're a really good player. And what about this and what about that? And I was talking to him about Van Halen. He goes, yeah, Eddie comps a lot of his solos together. I was like, what do you mean comps his solo together?
I heard about this. Yep, you're right.
Heartbroken. I was destroyed when I found that out. And so if that Remington demo ever, well, it wasn't a demo, it was an actual record that got shelved. If that thing ever surfaces, those are straight through solos. Like, I was bound and determined because that dude told me that Eddie did it, that I wasn't going to do it. And then later on, I found out, like Michael, everybody did it. Like, it was just a thing.
Lynch did it. Everybody.
Oh my God. Yeah, and later on in my career, I did it too. But it was like when I first learned that, I was like, wait, what? That, huh? And I don't know, man. There's something about that moment. It's just one of the things I love about NAMM. Like the Stone Tone thing, when I go play at Stone Tone or those places, all those things that I do are all off the cuff. So if you saw me and I was great, I was in the groove. You saw me and I was terrible, can't help it.
Oh, well.
You know what I mean? It's just the way it is that
Hey,
day.
we're human beings, you know?
Yeah.
And we have good days, we have bad days. And I remember, I told you earlier, I'm a huge fan of John Petrucci.
Yep.
I think I saw Dream Theater like 4 times, something like this.
Nice.
And on one time, I remember he screwed a solo. And I was like, yes, he's human. You know, I was like, and I wasn't feeling bad for that. I said he made a mistake, and this is fine. You know, he's a human being. You know, like everyone else. And
That's such a big thing for me with Instagram. I post mistakes all the time on purpose. Not like I make a mistake on purpose, but if I'm trying to do something and I make a mistake, but I like the rest of the take, I'll post it.
Yeah.
Because I teach and I listen to these kids who would be like, oh my God, I saw this guy play and it's perfect. It's like, yeah, he also took 45 takes to get that perfect 1 minute clip.
Yeah,
And so I personally show some of the edge. Like I posted that whole live rehearsal of the trio right before quarantine hit. With mistakes. It was streamed live, so nobody could be like, oh, you fixed it. Nope. That thing was live as could be. And I made mistakes, so what? Nobody's going to be perfect live. And I use
you're moving, you're grooving, you're into it, you know, and
you sweat, you miss a string, you pinch a note. When I found out the Kiss Alive album wasn't real, like that, no live albums are real. They're all punched and fixed. Like once the shadow or the curtain gets lifted, you know, it changes certain things. But I mean, at the same time, I won't cheat anybody. Like Kid Havoc, when we went out the last run, it was a decade and an era where we could easily use backing vocal tracks because I'm the only guy who sings in the band beside the singer. We didn't. So we just did it. And if we had good nights, perfect. And if we didn't, oh well.
I really love what you're saying, and my son is trying. They have a small band. They're doing an original mix with covers.
Nice.
And I'm telling him, you know, do it with your art. Don't overproduce it. And this is what they're doing. It's not perfect. But it feels live. You know, when you listen to the recordings, it feels live. So this is cool. Hey, I'm going to jump to the comments. Our discussion was so awesome. So I stopped looking at the comments. So we have John here. Very good comment on you. No, not this one. Sorry, John. This one, Francis. He's asking, Scott, I have a problem with fingers are slow. Do you have any? Can I start? Because I'm a slow player. I'm not.
Please.
Not you. I would say to Francis, if he is still listening, first start slow. You know, practice your movement, your picking movement with your left hand, very slow. Use a metronome. I discovered a metronome about a year and a half ago. I played guilty, you know, on this. I was never using a metronome, and I discovered using a metronome about a year and a half ago, and I feel my timing has been improved from 1,000. You know, I'm not a shredder yet, but I practice all the time with a metronome, all the time, and start slow. Check your movement, check your. You know, this is what I could say to Francis. But what's our call on this?
Everything
as you are a teacher.
Everything is the same, but another big thing. Most of the time, guys sometimes have too heavy gauges of strings, or their action's too high.
Okay.
And so you've got to find a balance. Like I play a custom gauge set of strings. I play a 9 through 40, which is very light. I keep my action low, and I have a soft touch. Okay. But I can dig in if I want to. I played 11s and 12s for years, and then I had wrist surgery, and the doctor's like, why are you doing this? And I was like, wow, that's a good point. If you're having issues where you can't get things, you know, Billy Gibbons plays 8s. Who cares? Like, don't let your ego get in the way and make yourself play 12s because Stevie Ray Vaughan played 12s. You know,
stop. I'm keeping saying this on my forum. Stop overthinking. If it sounds good to you, if you feel right using it, whatever your way, go to your way. Forget about, because this guy uses, I don't know, 11s, 12, or he
Yep.
has 13 pedals in front of the amp. If it sounds right for you, play it the way you want.
Yeah. There's
Am I wrong, or
no, not at all.
I'm?
I mean, and when I went to this gauge, so I switched string companies a couple years ago. The company that I was with forever, Von York, stopped making strings. And so I actually got contacted by a bunch of different companies, but I wanted something special. GHS was the only ones who would do what I wanted to do, which was a pure nickel string with this gauge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's perfect for me. And it's funny, the amount of guys that picked up my guitar at NAMM was like, wow, this is great. What are these 10s? No, this isn't. It's just how you set your guitar up. And I think this is another part that gets lost. You need to know your instrument. It's like a race car driver. You've got to know your car.
Yep.
You've got to know your instrument and your scale length and how well you set those things up. So I think a big part of it, when I hear guys with having issues with speed, I would start with making sure the instrument's set up properly and at a set up for speed. Like, none of my guitars are set up to play slide. If I go to play slide right now, it's going to sound terrible. But I have one guitar that is a slide guitar, so that makes sense.
And we have Scott here that just posted this, but it all depends also to your tuning,
Right.
I have guitars with different gauge of string depending on the tuning they are. I also played Guilty. I have 18 guitars behind me right now, and
same.
they are all tuned differently, and some have different gauge of string, but it all depends on the tuning you're trying, or the sound you're trying to achieve, and the style and everything. And
I mean, what he said there, the 12 through 54, I did that for a very long time. So if I'm in drop D now, the only thing, instead of, if I'm in permanent, if like this guitar will go drop D, there's a little trigger here that I just drop. But normally, if this was going to be all the time in drop D, I'd take this 40 to probably a 52. Just little things like that. But, for me, it's about my hand. And also, too, I think tone, I agree, the heavier strings are going to give you a heavier tone or a bigger tone. But at the same time, go listen to the stuff that I do in drop D on the record and tell me that doesn't sound thick.
Cool. I love the fact you were playing about having a light touch or kind of picking different, I need to share my screen. I'm a huge fan of Paul Gilbert. Okay. Yeah. I don't play like him at all, but I remember those plastic records that were in Guitar Player.
Yeah, flexible disc.
You remember this? Oh, first time I heard him was on in Guitar Player. There was one of those plastic record. It was the tune Scarified by Racer X back in, I think, around 1989, if I remember well. And since then, I've been a huge fan. Even if I don't try to copy him, I like his music, the way he plays and everything. So I bought that pedal a few weeks ago. It's a very expensive pedal. And it sounds right. I managed to make it sound right, but there's a knob here. I don't know if you see. Do you see my?
I can see it. Yeah, I can see it.
The push knob,
Mm-hmm.
And I tried a few of his settings in the video we posted on YouTube with Josh. Those videos are awesome, but I think ours is better tonight. We're quite good, So,
you know what? I love Josh. Josh is a good dude.
Okay, but that push knob, depending on how you pick the strings, it's crazy, if you put it like at 3 o'clock, you're in fuzz territory, that pedal, the way I pick. And I need to make a video about this pedal just on that knob. And I don't have a light touch. I noticed I attack the string with lots of intensity, and this guy must be playing super light, because when I crank that knob, it's crazy. I'm into fuzz theory. It's no more distortion pedal. I just wanted to. I was not prepared to show this, but the fact you said about
I was going to look for it. He gave me a pick at NAMM,
I still have a pic. I missed his presentation at NAMM. I was kind of
he was walking by the Floyd Rose booth, and I played one of his video licks from the video just to bust his balls. And he came over and started talking to me, and he was really cool. And he gave me like his business card pick. Like he has normal picks and like a business card pick, and it's so thin. It's like a piece of paper.
It's thin. I told you I'm a fan. I went to New York City to see him. You know, because
did you see him at the Iridium?
Exactly.
Ah, nice.
June 12th, awesome show. I was sitting 3 feet from him, and my wife, she's still laughing about that show because I was looking at him like it was a religious experience, you know.
Trust me, that was like me seeing Holdsworth. I got
okay,
you.
but Holdsworth, we could talk about him later. But I have another story. But you know, and I was a bit disappointed because he did his show. His show was awesome, but he left after, you know, no salutation to the crowd, nothing. You know, he just bye-bye and he left. And his drummer, we had met him before the show. He was outside. He was super cool. We talked to him, you know, and after the show, he was still there. So I went to see him and I said, I want a pic, you know, I want a pic from that gig. And no, his pics are very, very thin. I was kind of surprised. He went on the amp and he grabbed one for me, and I think right now he plays with very thin pick. So I don't know how he does this, but maybe his picking approach is very light or...
Well, that's what I was going to say. He's another player also who, as has gotten older and in the shred world, has shifted to a lighter touch. And I think, again, you know, between wrist surgery, tendonitis, a lot of guys have had issues. Jeff Loomis, another guy, has had tendonitis.
Oh, Jeff!
Issues,
yeah, I love Jeff.
You know, and Jeff's a buddy. I mean, we talk about this stuff. It's like you have to adjust your hands at a certain point. I mean, we're all older now, and to maintain that.
Anecdote: he was just in front of the Floyd Rose booth at NAMM, and I was too starstruck to go and meet. He was all alone. I was looking at him, and I was like, "Oh, Jeff Loomis," you know. Was like,
who knows? Maybe we can get him on the show.
Oh, this.
I'll try to text him later tonight.
Okay, good. But back to my pedal I was showing. This pedal is very touch sensitive. This is crazy. I was like, at first I was like, what? I paid almost $300 Canadian for that, and I was like very disappointed. And then I learned to tweak it and I learned to play it, and I was like, okay, the guy has a different approach picking than I have right now. So this is why we're different players. So this is why this pedal is...
To touch on that though, this is what happens. And this is what happens with everybody, especially in this day and age. Behind me, I don't know. I can't point what side what. There's 300 and some odd pedals in this house.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. That's not an exaggerated number. I literally have 300 some odd pedals from everybody under the sun. I have vintage, I have new stuff. We don't take time as players now to learn the gear that we have because we have so much access to gear and we have videos and we think it's supposed to do this and we don't take the time with it. I answer 20, 25 questions a day probably through email, through Facebook, whatever. And it's always someone who just hasn't bothered. Not always. I shouldn't say that. I'm not picking on anybody. I love the questions. Keep them coming. Please don't be bad. Yep. You know, but it's a matter of them not experimenting and playing. And I think some of the best stuff that I've come across gear-wise or tricks is because I've put time into these things and I understand what they do. I mean, you can stick me, for anybody who's gigged, it has to do what's called backline gigs where you don't know the amp you're getting and stuff. I travel. Yeah,
that was one of my questions.
I travel with a couple main things that I know will get me out of trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, shit. I did the Boss Katana tour. One of the places I showed up didn't have a katana. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, not sure how we're gonna do this, and I had a GT1 with me. The battery powered GT1, and I made do, and I answered all the katana questions, and finally somebody noticed that I didn't have one. I was like, yeah, I don't want to throw the store under the bus, but they don't have it, so just ask me questions. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, that actually happened.
This is a cool story. Hey, it's awesome. Already 44 minutes together,
That's crazy.
and we've reached question number 6 here. So I'm having fun tonight. This is awesome. So you said earlier in my interview that you're working on a new instrumental project.
Hmm.
So this is probably keeping you active or musically working.
Yeah. So the ideal was I was going to play Summer Jam like I always do,
Yeah.
and the Dallas Guitar Show was coming, and I wanted to have a couple new songs to play, so I wasn't playing the same things at the booth.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting ready to do the record, so I was going to finish up a couple songs early so that I could be ready for Dallas and then be ready for Summer Jam. Obviously, those have been shelved, so I'm taking a little bit slower approach. And like this one song, the name of the song is Holes in the Desert, and it's a play on words because it's spelled whole, Wholes, because I'm using the whole tone scale in it.
Okay, yeah,
You know,
okay.
it's just kind of being tricky, but I've rewritten that thing probably 16 times because I hear a thing, I change a thing. So having this much time is a good thing, but having this much time is a bad thing. I'm definitely much better when there's pressure involved.
Mm-hmm.
If you say, okay, here's your deadline, this record has to be done by X, I'm way better than being like, take your time, because I will take my time. And I'm trying not to do that because I can be a perfectionist. I am a perfectionist, but I mean, I can take it to a silly point. And so the goal is to at least finish this one song. Like the artwork is done before the song. So that's actually a really big step, believe it or not. Like the title and the artwork for things really hold me up. So to have that done, and I kind of finished the arrangement yesterday, and I sent it off to the guy to do the drums, and like things are going in a better direction. So hopefully this one will be another, because the last one was an EP with 4 unreleased tracks. So technically it was 8 tracks. This one's just going to be a full 12 new song kind of thing.
Awesome. Any favorite piece of gear right now? I see you with your guitar in hands right now, and we haven't got there, but do you have any piece of gear that you would say, I can't live without it right now? Or
right now, I'm going to give you 3 pieces of gear. So the Boss ODX1. Okay, just love that thing. It's always in my bag. I even brought it to NAMM, even though I know I didn't have to because I just could have borrowed one, but I just did not want to have that not be there. The Keeley Egos, which I know, ironically, I'm wearing the shirt. That's not why I'm plugging it. I think it's probably the best delay on the market right now. That's small size.
I have a modified tube screamer from this guy. It's upstairs, and thanks to my buddy Trent Berry. He was on my show a couple of weeks ago, and back then he was a demoer for Kelly. Right now,
Robert is a dear friend and a great dude, and that pedal is just stupid good. And then last but not least, I would put the Chase Bliss Phaser, the Womb Tone. If you gave me those 3 pedals, there's really nothing I couldn't do. There's not a sound I couldn't pull out of my hat.
As we are always, let's say, looking at gear or dreaming about something new, are you lusting for something right now, or any piece of gear you would like to?
I just got the new Luna software from UA Audio, so I've been tracking in that, which is really cool. And I've been lucky enough to record on some real Neve boards over the years and through some real Neve equipment. And they've got some cool Neve plugins. They're super expensive, so I'm debating on that. And then, believe it or not, I'm probably going to grab an SI 1000. I think
they sounded awesome.
I like it as a compositional tool. And then if I had to go just like something silly that I want, there's just a handful of like MIDI pedal stuff to help control my boards. Like I want a MIDI time clock thing. Actually, these guys, AWL, they make a Nano. So it's another one of these pedals, but a Nano. I want one of those. Like there's a bunch of little stuff that I had planned to spend my stimulus check on that I haven't gotten yet. So we'll see where that goes.
This is cool. I think you have that Boss was a tube expander. Am I correct?
Yeah,
This
it's
is
right over
something I tried at NAM. Hey, boss, my boss friends over there. If you listen to that video, I want one. You know what this
I
is?
tell you, man, that is, and I've got a great relationship with the guys at Two Notes. That the tube expander is the best thing that I've played out of all of them. And I got in trouble the other day because I was talking to one of the guys from UA, and I said I picked the Boss over the Ox, but I just think it's that good. And
No, I played it for like 15 minutes at NAM, and I was like, oh my god! With all the tube amps I own, I want one of these piece of gear. You know.
I was in Nashville for a session, and I can't say the name of who it was because I signed an NDA and all that good stuff. But I picked that up in Nashville, and I was there for Boss had like a party, and we were hanging out. And I told them what I was doing the next day. They're like, "Well, you got to show this person that." So I showed it to him, and this dude was just floored. And they had every amp in the studio, every vintage thing you could imagine, and they were just like, "This is incredible." So yeah, it was pretty crazy.
It's a nice piece of gear. I have a, let's say it's my turn to get a good comment. Thank you.
Oh, no.
JV's a go-to katana guy. Yeah, thank you very much.
No ifs, ands, or buts, man.
Do you have any gear regrets? I don't know. Something you got stolen, destroyed on tour. I don't know.
Two. No, I've luckily never had any gear stolen on tour.
Yeah.
I had a 68 Marshall Plexi. A real deal one, and an English one, so the proper tubes, the whole 9 yards. I had to sell it not to go to jail because I had a bunch of outstanding tickets, and they were going to put me in jail for the tickets. It was stupid. And I made money on it. So, like, when I sold it for the tickets, I actually made a profit, but now it's just one of those amps. And I had Lee Jackson modify it before I sold it. So it's just one of those amps where I should never have sold it. But, you know, my pretty ass in jail wasn't going to work, so... That, and then I had a BC Rich Nagel gunslinger that Wayne Charvel built, and
wow.
I got it at Sam Ash, actually from Sammy Ash, who's, you know, was the general manager at the store at the time. This is how funny. This is how far back I go with the Ash family. And we were playing one night, and we used to have this crazy pyro that was homemade, and it was one of those weird shows. My guitar tech used to keep my guitars in what they call a boat, which is like a guitar stand full of guitars. And that particular night, they couldn't fit the boat in the stage because we were a weird opener, and so the guitars were behind me.
Your room on the stage was quite limited, I bet.
Right, and I had 6 cabs, and you know, it was the height of all that stuff. So he had the guitars. He had the 2 main guitars on stands, and the pyro went off. Our singer missed his cue, stepped on the guitar, snapped the headstock.
Oh boy!
And I had a wicked temper then, and I used to love the fight. So everybody decided that it was better not to tell me till the next day. So they put it in the road case. We got to the next place. We unpacked, and I'm like, "What? Wait, what? What? How?" And they're just blaming it on the crew, like I just broken the trick. Now we videotape every show. Everybody forgets, and we would review these tapes to see how we did. And they weren't like pro shot. They just stick on a stand way back at the sound booth.
Yeah.
And you'd video. And so I could see, I was like, wait a minute, that's you stepping on the neck. You broke the neck. And so I ended up getting the guitar fixed. BC Rich did a great job of fixing it. But I kind of just, I don't know, the guitar was weird to me after that. So I sold it. But then I went back and listened to some recordings of it. And I tracked it down. I found the guy who had it. He would not sell it back to me. So there you go.
Hey, hold 10 seconds.
Take your time.
You were talking about the gunslinger. Give me 10 seconds.
Yeah, take your time. I don't know if anybody can hear this, like a little music. Oh, looks like it's yellow. Is it yellow? Could be yellow. Very nice. Is that yellow or orange?
It's a retro yellow.
Nice.
Okay, this is the this one is made in Korea. Okay, it's a reissue they did. Just as an anecdote, because you talk about the gunslinger, back, I think in 87, something like this. I had ordered one, a pink one. But
Nice.
the store where I ordered it never got it. It took I was very patient, but it took months, but they never got it, and I finally bought something else. Let's say back in I think 2009, 2010,
Right.
BC Rich did that special edition,
Hmm.
and I could not resist. So I had to got it. I did a stupid thing. I changed the pickup to a tone zone. I don't like the tone zone in this one. It used to have I think it's a super distortion, a DeMarjo super distortion. It was coming from the factory. I still have the pickup. I just need to switch it back to it. But
I
and it's and I did a slight mod on it.
The push bars. I love them
It's
so much better.
push. Yeah, yeah. And
I love those so much better.
and the Floyd on it is quite decent. I installed a tremolo, which is a serious piece of crap. I hate those things. These are.
You know, man, I got two of them, and I liked them at first, and now I'm not a fan anymore.
I had one installed professionally. Would not stay in tune when I was gigging. I installed one myself. Would not stay in tune. These are good when you're a basement player, but not the way I abuse a guitar.
No, I didn't.
I would pull the guitar, like hold it like this, and the little screw in the back would just get loose.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm using. I don't. It's hard. Probably can't tell.
Yeah, I see it.
There's a tone vise, but under here is a thing called a black box.
Yeah.
Which is it's the concept of a tremolo, but without all the headaches, and it's perfect. Like I can still flutter. And I can go to drop D, and it stays in tune, and it works.
Great for you. And
the tremolo, not so much.
My solution to tremolo is to have multiple guitars. So you bring different guitars. One is tuned in drop D, one is tuned in a different tune.
The reason I did that to this was because I knew NAMM I had songs in drop D, and I was like, I can't take two guitars because of the plane restrictions and the cost of putting two on the flight and. So yeah, and then I ended up signing with Tone Vice at the show. We hooked up and they showed me the proper way to use it and the whole bit.
But,
because
I'm quite proud of this one. It's not a US made. I know it's
still cool though,
and it's got the reverse headstock. I was I need it. You know.
No, my Nagel had the reverse and the whole nine. And you got to understand, when I was in town, that Sam Ash, I would go there every other day. Like it was just where I would go and hang out. And they would, I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but they used to give me, they would give me picks, they would give me strings. They treated us like royalty in that store, man. And they were so cool to us. And we bought all our gear there. And so that day I came in and Ralph, who's now at PRS, was the sales guy. And he's like, dude, you've got to see this guitar. This has got you written all over it.
Awesome.
And they gave it to me for next to nothing. Awesome. With a case and a guitar stand. But I did shred, interesting you said that. I went through a bunch of pickups before I landed. I put a JB in it. That's what I ended up putting in that guitar. So
this one came with a super distortion. And I don't remember for which reason I put a tone zone, but I remember this was my main guitar when I used to play in a cover band. And everybody was coming back to me and this guitar sounds awesome. I don't know why I changed it. We have a very good question for you.
Sure.
Can you explain a little bit about the Boss Tube Expander?
Okay, so if you're using a power attenuator, like the old THT stuff or whatever, where you could basically crank your amp down and then take 20 dB out of it or 15 dB out of it, but you were just more or less stressing the tubes in one direction or the other. Tube Amp Expander does that, but allows you to have positive or negative feedback coming in and out of it. So it actually reacts like a cabinet would react. So you can have no volume, you can have all your volume. My boogie right now that's off to the side of me is set at about 5. Now the volume 5 on my Mark 5 is the same volume when we did outside, like we did outside sheds with Poison. So we went outside with Poison and we're playing outside in these huge outdoor, they're not arenas, they're sheds. They're big things. And so 5 with 2 cabs sounds like it's loud, but not on that big of a stage. In this room that I'm in right now, it would be deafening, but it controls it so that I can make the amp breathe. But then when I hit the mic levels, everything, or when I hit my interface levels or whatever, it's controllable. And the thing with the tube expander too is you can save presets. It can control MIDI. So if you've got a head that's MIDI, it can control it. You've got effects built into it if you want to use the effects. You can use it as a power amp. Like I carry an Amplify. Oh, it's normally sitting on my desk and it's not here. Of course not. Carry an amplifier box from Studio Devil. So if something went wrong, I could just plug that straight into there, and now I've got an amp again. You know, it just does way, way more. But the biggest thing for me about it is, you know, I haven't mic'd anything up in a year. I've been running everything through that and going into my DAW. And, I mean, I've got a 421 and a 57 permanently tattooed to a cab over here that I haven't touched in forever.
And are you using the stock impulse responses, or are you using any specialized IRs?
Sort of. So my favorite cabinet was a 212 with 65 watt Celestion greenbacks. Mm-hmm. And I basically found the perfect version of that, kept A-Bing it until we got it right. So it is basically my cab in there.
Oh, wow.
And so, I mean, anything that you've heard on YouTube, anything you've heard on Instagram, anything you've heard, period, that's not me playing live in front of you, has been the Mark V through that directly into something. Nobody's heard anything otherwise. And it's always funny when I talk to guys, be like, oh man, that thing sounds great. I don't know, man. I'm not big on the tube expander. It's like, that's all you heard was the tube expander. That's what you're hearing. You know,
I remember about 10, 15 years ago when IRs and amp VSTs were like kind of coming out more mainstream.
Yep.
I remember playing a lot with this, and I stopped. I don't remember why I stopped using those, but this
most of them suck, to be honest. I mean, I had a chance to go out with a bigger guy, and we couldn't do we couldn't bring any gear. We could only bring pedal boards. And at the time, Line 6 had the 500, I believe it was. I don't remember what it was. It was past the pod, but not anywhere near the Helix stuff. And it just didn't sound very good. But that's what I was going to have to use. Mm-hmm. Luckily, that ended up not happening at all, so I didn't have to use it. But it took a while for this to get to a point where it was really usable.
Time flies. We're having so much fun tonight. Let's go to... Okay, I see you with somewhat of a Les Paul copy. So you're stuck on a desert island. You only have two choices. Les Paul or Strat?
Oh, it's going to be a Strat.
Oh, really?
Always going to be a Strat.
Why?
Yeah. I can do more with a Strat than I can do with a Les Paul. I can make a Les Paul. I can make a Strat sound like a Les Paul. I can't make a Les Paul sound like a Strat.
Okay.
So just a versatility thing.
Interesting.
You know, I'm actually body-wise, I've been playing tellies more than anything lately.
Yeah, that was one of my questions coming. I saw many of your personal guitars are telly shaped, and I was having that discussion with Trent Berry a few weeks ago that you see more and more telly right now. You know, remember in the 80s, you would not see any telly in the end of players.
It's funny. I was a telly player in the 80s, but nobody would let me play a telly.
Okay,
like, everybody would tell you, oh, that's a country guitar. You can't play that. And the body style just fit me perfect. I mean, that's why Dean gave me the black telly. I was like kind of pressing, hey, I want a telly. Hey, I want a telly. They're like, no, let's give you a Strat. I was like, hey, I want a telly. So they got me the telly. And you know, it's interesting. I think everything's cyclical. Don't forget, a couple years ago, everything was offsets with Mustangs and the J Mascis style guitars, and then of course, let's not forget the entire '90s where everything had to be a PRS. You know, now everything has to be headless. You know, it's
this is weird. Yeah, about the headless, it's kind of a trend right now.
So one thing I don't have is a headless. I kind of want one, but never found one that I really dug yet.
But it's funny, telly, you know, you see so much telly right now. Even Michael Angelo Basio, his new double neck is a pair of telly.
I saw that at the show, and that was really weird to see. That was definitely not what I expected at all. That was definitely strange.
At NAMM, can you see this right now?
I saw that. Yeah, it was beautiful.
Wow, I played it. I was like, I want one badly, you know, reverse headstock and everything. I was like, Oh my, this is awesome, you know. And I always been a fan of the Tilly. Never played, never no. I played a few, but never owned one. And this one, I was like, I need one of these, you know. Even Godin, the Quebec, we have the you know Godin guitars. They are made in Quebec here, and
Yeah.
they have a new Tilly body this year, and yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, they make some amazing guitars, actually.
But this one is on my I need one list. But we'll see what happened. Anyway, hey, clean or crunch? If you're stuck,
I'm clean because
you're a clean guy. Yeah,
yeah,
you'll
I do. I still do a lot of acoustic stuff, and I still do a lot of tapping. So if I only get to choose one, I'd go clean.
And as you toured a lot, a good guitar or a good amp?
Good guitar.
Yeah.
I've played through some really horrible amps and made it work.
This is what I was thinking. I feel the same. Any starstruck moment, you know, where you meet someone and it was a, you know, you were like, ah, I don't know.
Two.
Yeah.
Two of them.
Go.
So I'll give you the Seymour Duncan one.
Mm-hmm.
I was playing Floyd Rose Booth 35th anniversary, and they were doing a picture with Floyd Rose himself, Seymour Duncan, and Andy, who runs Floyd Rose. It was an old picture, and they were, like the trend was copying the photos. And
anecdote, I missed that guy. I wish I would have talked to the Floyd Rose guy when I was at NAMA. I just,
dude, he's such a genius. Yeah. But I had my black Charvel with me, which has 3 Seymour Duncan JBs in it. And I didn't realize Seymour was in the booth. And Floyd pulled me over and said, "Hey, come here, I want you to meet somebody." And I was like, you know, and then we got talking about my guitar, and he's like, why 3 JBs? And we were talking about different stuff. And I ended up, we became friends, and we exchanged numbers, and I talked to him fairly regularly. And he's just such a cool dude. So that was definitely a moment. And then I got to meet Holdsworth in '89. I had a show in the same town that night. I found out he was playing, made arrangements. So as soon as our show was over, I was going to run over and go see him. And I got to meet him and check out his gear. And we hung out for a couple hours and drank. And it got to the point of where I was asking so many questions. He literally said to me, he's like, "Mate, do you like anything else?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You like fishing, cars, bicycles?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I love cars. Because can we talk about that?" I was like, "Sorry." And I used to see him at NAMM all the time, and he would always remember that story. And such a beautiful soul. But yeah, those are the 2 ones that really were, I was like, wow, that's incredible.
I have a weird anecdote about Holdsworth. Started listening to him. I discovered him in the late 80s, okay, early 90s. And he was at the Montreal Jazz Festival. He did a gig. So I went there with my wife. I think it was 1983, something like that. No, not 83, 93, sorry.
Okay.
So 93. And we left the show after 30 minutes. I was not expecting that. My wife was bored, you know, she was like, endless jam. It was very, very fusion kind of music, you know.
Oh,
and we had to leave. I had to leave, and I hate to say that, but I was, yeah.
You know, man, I get it, especially then. I mean, in '89 for me, I was already knee deep into him. Like I was studied with a guy named Frank Axtell here in Florida, and he turned me on to him, and that was it. I fell down that rabbit hole hard. And so when I got to see him and play with him, not play with him, but see, you know, touch his gear and talk to him, I mean, it was just mind blowing. And funny thing that night, the club's really tiny. It was at the old MAE, which is long gone, musician and art place. He missed, like you were talking about with Petrucci. He missed. He was playing a run, whatever, and he missed. He rolled down his volume. Chad Wackerman was his drummer, and Chad's talking because Alan doesn't talk. And you see Alan going, running the lick that he missed over and over again in between the song. I remember thinking to myself that no matter how much I practice, no matter how good I get, I will never be that guy. And it's the only note he missed. I mean, I was 5 feet away from the dude.
Yeah.
And he still practiced something he missed on stage in between songs. I was like, holy shit, this is next level. This is why he's, one of the greatest players on the
Yeah.
planet.
I he rest in peace right now, and yeah, let's yeah, he was a great player, and sometimes I feel weird telling you that story that I left after 30 minutes of his show, but
Dude, I've talked to guys who don't like him at all. I get it. I mean,
yeah,
I'm
no.
not a BB King fan. I know I'm going to get hate mail for that, but I can take BB for 3 songs. I love BB for 3 songs. After that, I'm done.
Yeah, well, I would say the same to Buddy Guy. He's kind of, but
that's why it's music.
Yeah.
It did its job. If music doesn't push you one direction or the other, if you don't love it or you don't hate it, it didn't do anything. It didn't do its gig.
Yeah, makes sense.
To me, that's the. I would much rather have somebody be like, dude, your CD sucked, versus being like, yeah, man, it was okay. I dug a few bits. That to me is more soul crushing than the other. I don't know why.
We're having so much fun. Here, just got an ESP 200 Tilly. Why, it's awesome. Well, congrats. I never played one of those, so I can't comment. But
ESP makes some amazing guitars.
Yeah, great. Yeah, would you believe we've been speaking for over an hour and 20 minutes?
No, because it doesn't. This seems like we're back in California just hanging out.
Yeah, it's so fun. Let's go. You can go back in time. Old Scott goes meet young Scott, and he can give him advices. What would you tell to younger Scott?
Don't spend your first couple of advances. Save that money.
But anything on practicing or whatever, or no?
No, I had great teachers who really drilled that, and I had the sports background, so I understood the hard work.
Yeah.
I would probably, I preach this to kids now. I didn't live in the moment enough. Like, we're doing these great big shows, and I'm meeting all these people, and I'm playing with all these famous cats that you look up to, and I don't think I was in the moment enough at those times. I was always like, where are we going next? What are we doing? And so now, like, when I get to play with guys at these shows at NAMM, or like when we played with Extreme in 2010 or whatever, I'm much more appreciative of those moments where before, I was at Roger Glover's house when I was a kid in one of the bands, and here I am in the deep purple house with all this amazing stuff, and I'm worried about, getting laid and getting a drink, where I could have been picking this man's brain who played with Richie Blackmore, I didn't do it the right way.
I was lucky, but you see, my wife brought me another drink while we were.
Nice.
It's interesting. I don't want to extend on this, but you said about sport and discipline and practicing. Mm-hmm. I read something about Nita Strauss, the guitar player.
Yeah, Nina.
And I think she used to be a gymnastic or into gymnastic back
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would really like to talk this regarding her guitar practicing, whatever, or routine versus being a gymnast, and all the discipline she got while doing sports, and if she applied it to practicing at one point, or this is something I would like to talk to her, just to ask. And I was too shy. I saw her at NAMM. She was at the bus booth, and
yeah.
And I was like, okay, I won't bother her with any stupid question.
Dude, I did a boss clinic with her in Tampa. She's so nice. She's the sweetest girl in the world. Like, really? I was there just to be like, to show off the GT 1000 and hang out to make sure she didn't need anything. So I played a few songs. I talked to a few people. It was a real low key gig for me, but I hung out with her and Josh all day, and just really great people. Man.
I'm too humble. When I see people like this, I'm like, I don't want to bug them. And I met other at NAMM, and I was so disappointed. So maybe this is why.
Yeah, I'll tell you, man. You do this stuff long enough, there's going to be a few of these guys that really. And it's funny too, because I get to see them, how they treat a fan versus how they treat like a guy like me or somebody else that's in the booth, and it's interesting. Some of these that are really good at being fake, but Nita's not one of them. Nita's legit.
Cool. I'm going fast. One table, 2 chairs. Your favorite drink. You can talk to dead or alive musician, artist, whoever you'd like to have in front of you, and just ask a few questions, like just like we're doing tonight.
I would have a nice Crown Royal or some sort of nice scotch, and I would talk to John Coltrane. I'd
Oh,
love to
John,
know.
yeah.
I'd love to know how he kind of took this chordal harmony thing and the whole story about him getting, booed off stage. And I'd love to know what is myth and what is fact. I'd love to hear that story from him.
This is awesome. Yeah, cool. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Hopefully still playing. I don't know. I don't have any other skill sets, so I have to pay the bills, and I don't think I'll be retiring in 10 years. So hopefully I'll be still recording and playing.
Interesting. Sorry to jump over this, but I'm just going back to around 2000, 2001. I was a basement player back then. I still am a basement player, but I remember I was just playing on my own, and I had a basic gear, and I saw Iron Maiden back then, and it had been many years since I had seen a live show, and I saw those guys on stage having fun, and I was like, man, even if you're getting older, you can still rock on stage and everything. Yep. And you think about the Rolling Stones, Paul McCartney, for example, and I don't have other names right now, but
I got you.
You know what? You get my point. And yeah, you can still rock even if you're getting older. And
I jammed with Nico McBrain probably 4 years ago.
Really?
The dude still plays like a Mack truck. Yeah, we played rock and roll from Zeppelin, and we did a bunch like random. It was a random Guitar Center thing.
Awesome.
Some contest thing. I wasn't in the contest. I was part of the quote unquote house band. But yeah, man, I don't think any of that matters. I think if you're, what matters is like if I tried to dress up the way I dressed up when I was 20, yeah, then somebody should smack me. I think you have to be smart enough.
Check my hair,
right. But I think you got to be smart enough to kind of know that limitation. But I make guitar music, so I don't really think that's going to be. If I was still trying to play the Kid Havoc stuff, yeah, I think that would be. It's a little sad going seeing some of my old peers who are still trying to dress like they're 26 and do that. I think there's like even the Stones have gracefully aged into this category.
There's a line somewhere where you can. It's hard to explain, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
It starts to look kind of like a comedy act, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah, you're kind of a parody of yourself.
Right.
And at one point. Yeah. And hey, let's finish with this.
Okay.
You've been involved many years in music. I think the last 10 years have been an evolution of, let's say, amp simulations. I know the pod got. If you go back to let's say the late 90s, Line 6 pod was kind of the new trend and everything. Line 6 brought the whole thing to a new level.
Right.
But I think the last 10 years have been a huge evolution for amp simulation and everything.
Oh, absolutely.
And what do you think is the next big thing in the next 10 years? I don't know. Online collaboration. I don't know. Let's share what you're thinking about the next 10 years.
Well, think about it this way. So you got to understand, I started out with a Boss pedal board at 17 years old.
Yeah.
And not just saying that because we're Boss guys, but I literally just had Boss pedals taped to a board at 17. I went around the United States for 2 years with that. That evolved into a big rack system, which is still over there somewhere, that I still own. I never got rid of it. That de-evolved back to a pedal board that is now evolved back into a switching system, which is still the rack system, let's be honest, but we're just doing it in a cooler way. And now I can go do everything I want with a GT1000 or a Helix or a Kemper or whatever. And I think what guys are doing now, Jeff Loomis is doing something interesting right now where he's combining Synergy amps and his Helix and some other things, and he's trying some stuff. I personally, when the trio show goes out, I'm taking my Waza quarter stack and my Boogie quarter stack, and I'm using a combination of pedals and an ES8, so everything will be MIDI, but I'll have the best of both worlds.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's going to happen is this generation of guys that are so diehard on tubes are going to die off in the sense, they're not going to be as. It's not going to have to be like Tom Quayle is going to sound like Tom Quayle. He doesn't have to have that. Andy James, same thing. So I don't think it's going to become as necessary. Like Austin does those big stadium shows with a FX8.
Yeah, this is what he told me. Yeah. And
You know,
so we're moving, and you know what? My next guest is Timon Crudenier. I hope I pronounced
from
his
Cynic.
name. Yeah, he's
In the band Cynic.
Yeah, and I met him. Funny story, but hey, an hour and a half together.
Yeah,
We could keep going talking like this.
absolutely.
And I met him first in the mid 2000. He used to be a member, a huge member. You know, he was contributing a lot of my Line 6 Pod forum back in the late 90s. You know, I had a forum back then.
Right, the forums.
He was younger. He was just starting at that time, but he was an awesome player already. We've met in the mid 2000. We've met in Montreal in the late 2000, and he was playing for Cynic back then. And he was already playing with an Axe FX and all in-ears, and his gear was quite very simple. And we're going to elaborate on that topic when he will join my next interview.
Well, real quick, and I'll give you the version of this. Think about it. We used to travel in a van, or when I used to fly, I could put my rack cases on the plane and not spend thousands of dollars. Just to go to NAMM last time, to put this in its flight case and a couple other things, that cost me $150 each way. So that's $300 tacked on.
Mm-hmm.
We're not making more money now. So the gig money that we made in 1991 is the same gig money we're making in 2020.
Yeah.
But what used to cost me nothing, now I have $300 more. Of course, we're going to get smaller. We're going to take less stuff. In-ears and modelers are going to be touring staples. Now, the guy playing at the local pub, no, man, he's going to take what he likes. But working guys that make a living touring or gigging, I don't think you're going to see guys carrying stuff anymore. You don't have to.
And I will conclude, and if you look at the Paul Gilbert videos on YouTube about his pedal board, he's always saying what you just said. You know, his pedal board is quite limited. A few pedals, and he will use the back. How do you call this? The back rig, or what's the backline rig?
Yeah, you get whatever the backline gives you.
Yeah.
And backline rigs are scary, but that's why you bring stuff that you know. That's why you bring your toolkit. You know
and
what I mean?
I have a friend. Yeah, I can just keep going for my advertisement. Do you know August Zadra?
I know the name.
Know the name? He's the one of the guitar player for Dennis DeYoung.
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay, he's a friend from the Line 6 Pod Forum also.
Nice.
And we always kept, communicating since back then. I met him a couple of times in Montreal when he came for playing with Dennis. And I don't know if he sees that show tonight or at what point, but I am asking him to join my my live show at one. And he was talking to me about backline rigs all the time, and I saved him once when he came to Montreal. His wireless system just died, so I provided him with my own Line 6 G50 system. So
yeah, dude, there's so many. I wish I could go through all the people that saved my butt out on the road. Like, you get to a town and something be terrible, and some dude would be hanging out at soundcheck, be like, "Hey, I got this at home." I'm like, "Please go get it." You know?
I remember he called me and he said, "Can you bring your Line 6 system to?" And I just broke mine right now, so I said, "Yeah." And I remember going to the venue, and the guy at the entrance was like, "Who the hell are you?" You know? And I'm like, I had the box in my hand. I said, "I need to bring that box to August. He's in the back, you know." And the guy was like, "Who are you?" You know? It was so funny. Hey, everyone. I had a blast, and over an hour. We have a record tonight. You know, we spent over an hour and a half, and I could have kept going and going and going and going with you. That was fun. I may ask you to for another show. That was
of course.
Fun. And thank you very much.
Thank you,
very
JB.
honored, everyone.
Same.
We will have another show with Timon coming next week. I will post the dates and everything.
Let him know I'm a big Cynic fan. I love that band.
Yeah, and their drummer was. Sorry
fantastic.
God he brought him with him. You know, rest in peace, that guy. I don't remember his name, but he was an awesome drummer. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, guys.
This was cool, and see you soon.
See you all very soon, guys. Take care.